I spent 27 years setting the family table only to discover they had been quietly removing my chair all along. The conference room felt unnaturally cold that morning. My fingertips registered the chill of the polished mahogany as I arranged platters of miniature pastries I had perfected after 347 attempts. My hands moved with the precision that comes from preparing over 10,000 client meetings, while inside me, something trembled like a soufflé on the verge of collapse. The scent of butter and caramelized sugar hung in the air, my signature, yet no one noticed. 27 years of creating moments for others had made me invisible in my own. We're talking scalability now. Bigger markets, Michael said. My son's voice carried that MBA-polished confidence I had paid $97,000 in tuition to help him develop. The same voice that once called for me when he skinned his knees, now discussing my life's work as if I were merely its caretaker. The trademark filing is just the beginning. David slid the documents across the table, his fingers lingering before releasing them to me. That's when my stomach tightened. That culinary instinct warning when something isn't right, like milk on the edge of turning. The same feeling I had when I first suspected David was unfaithful 9 years ago, but dismissed. Some ingredients, once spoiled, never recover their intended flavor. The pages blurred as I scanned paragraph after paragraph. Our company name, our recipes, our brand, all titled solely to David Winters and Michael Winters. 27 years of my life, cataloged and claimed without a single mention of Marianne Winters. My heart thudded against my ribs, the sound filling my ears like a rolling pin against dough. This is the digital catalog of all the signature recipes, Michael continued, sliding his tablet toward me. We've systematized everything so anybody can replicate them exactly. My recipes, my techniques, the flavors I had developed over decades of testing, tasting, adjusting, all reduced to measurement charts and process flows. The bitter taste of betrayal coated my tongue, metallic and sharp, like when you accidentally bite into a bay leaf left in the stew. But these are my recipes, I said, my voice distant, thick in my mouth. The words felt heavy, undercooked. Michael's laugh cut through the room, slicing the air like a well-honed knife. Mom, come on, they're family recipes. We're just formalizing things for the investors. What investors? My heart hammered against my ribs like a mallet tenderizing meat. The steady rhythm I had maintained for decades, suddenly erratic, unpredictable. Marcus Friedman, they're offering $2.6 million for expansion. Marcus Friedman, the restaurant group, I had turned down 3 years ago because they wanted to strip the soul from my cooking. The meeting I had told David about over pillow talk, never dreaming he was taking notes while I bared my business concerns. His hand had stroked my hair then, comforting, collecting information to use against me. We didn't want to worry you with the details, David said, breaking open one of my pastries. Flakes scattered across the document, bearing only his name. The buttery scent that should have brought pride now turned my stomach. You hate the business side. This way you can focus on what you love, the cooking. The cooking? Pins and needles spread up my arms, a sensation I had last felt when I fell asleep at my prep table, after working 20 hours straight to save a wedding when 2 staff members quit. I built this business. I created these recipes. I developed the client relationships. I stayed up until 3 in the morning finalizing menus while you slept. I worked 60-hour weeks while caring for your mother with dementia, measuring medications as precisely as I measured vanilla extract. For a moment, I caught the phantom scent of her lavender lotion, the same bottle I had applied to her paper-thin skin every night for 3 years, while David claimed he couldn't bear to see her that way. Some people can't stand the heat, yet they still claim ownership of the kitchen. Jenny, my daughter-in-law, glanced at her watch, the Cartier I had helped Michael select for their 5th anniversary. Marianne, nobody's diminishing your contribution, But the heritage angle only goes so far in modern markets. We need Michael's innovation to move forward. Heritage angle. My contribution. All those nights testing recipes until they were perfect. All those early mornings prepping for events, reduced to a quaint backstory in someone else's business narrative. The weight of unacknowledged labor pressed against my chest, like the heaviness after kneading 12 batches of dough by hand when the mixer broke before a major event. We're taking your little collection of recipes and turning it into something that can actually scale, Michael said, his voice holding that hint of condescension he reserved for explaining business realities to me. The family table concept, but modernized. My little collection. 843 original recipes developed through meticulous testing, thousands of handwritten notes on client preferences, decades of institutional knowledge, each recipe a story, each technique a lesson, reduced to content for their business plan. Something shifted in me then. The same instinct that tells you exactly when bread is proofed or a sauce is reduced to perfection. My chest tightened, as if bound with kitchen twine, my breathing coming in shallow sips. The room tilted, faces growing distant. My hands, these hands that could butcher a chicken in 90 seconds flat, that could detect a sauce's readiness from a single stir, trembled for the first time in decades. David reached for the champagne I had chilled. Because that's what I did. I anticipated needs, prepared the backdrop for moments I didn't know were designed to erase me. The cork released with a hollow pop that echoed the emptiness spreading through my chest. To the future of winter's catering, David said, raising his glass. To innovation, added Michael. To family, said Jenny with practiced sincerity. I didn't lift my glass. Instead, I noticed something I had overlooked, the new logo mock-up on Michael's tablet. The elegant script of my signature, the one that had graced our brand for 27 years, had been replaced with sleek, modern typography. Clean, efficient, and utterly devoid of the human touch that had been our hallmark. They hadn't just taken my business, they had literally erased my name. Let me put it on the table for you. They had restructured me right out of my own life's work. I stared at these strangers, my husband, my son, my daughter-in-law, as something cracked open inside me like an eggshell giving way under pressure. Not my heart. Something deeper, more fundamental, the foundation I had built my identity upon, crumbling into dust. My water glass slipped from nerveless fingers, spilling across the trademark documents, bleeding the ink into blue clouds. No one moved to clean it up. They just waited for me to do it, because I always did. Didn't I? The satisfying splash as water met paper was the first honest sound I had heard all morning. Not this time. This time, I let it soak. And as I watched the ink blur and spread, I felt something unexpected bloom in the hollow space where my trust had been. A seedling of resolve, watered by their betrayal, taking root with surprising strength. I still remember the weight of my mother's recipe box in my hands the day she gave it to me. Solid oak, worn smooth at the corners, containing 4 generations of women's wisdom. Recipes are more than instructions, she told me, pressing it into my palms. They're stories with flavors instead of words. That box sat on my first kitchen counter in 1995, a chipped laminate surface in a rented apartment, where the oven ran 40 degrees cool. I was 30 years old, recently laid off, with $4,300 in savings and a passion for food that had been simmering on my back burner for too long. The first time I catered an event, it was for a desperate friend whose planned caterer canceled 3 days before her office holiday party. I worked 36 hours straight, turning my tiny kitchen into a war room. I remember placing the last canapé and stepping back to survey 50 perfectly arranged trays. My back ached, my feet throbbed, and 3 small burns marked my forearms like badges of honor. I had never felt more alive. You have a gift, the company president told me that night, pressing his business card into my hand. "Our clients would love your food. It tastes like it was made by someone who cares." 6 months later, David and I married. He climbed the corporate ladder at an insurance firm while I booked 7 corporate events, working from our apartment kitchen, storing equipment in our bedroom closet. "You could really make something of this," he said one night, as I wrote estimates at our kitchen table. 2 weeks later, he announced he had cashed out his modest 401k, $32,000, penalties and all, to lease a small commercial kitchen space. "We're a team now," he said. "Your success is my success." For years that seemed true. I worked 18-hour days developing recipes and building client relationships. David kept his insurance job, but spent evenings helping with bookings. When I signed Bergen Financial to handle their executive dining, a $124,000 annual account, we celebrated with champagne, drinking at our kitchen table, dreaming of the empire we would build together. I did not notice the shift at first. It happened in small moments, subtle as salt dissolving in water, changing the flavor of everything without being visible. Like the charity gala 8 years in, when the event organizer gushed about the menu. "Your wife is so talented," she told David, as I stood beside him. He just nodded, saying, "I have always had good taste," drawing a laugh while my contribution hung unacknowledged. The weight of invisibility pressed against my chest, a feeling I would come to recognize too well. Or when, after landing the Manchester Hotel's contract, a $340,000 annual catering package I had spent months cultivating, David introduced himself to their director as the owner of Winter's Catering. Not co-owner, owner. I said nothing, swallowing the correction that burned in my throat. Then Michael graduated from culinary school, a path I had encouraged, thrilled to have my son join the business. I had paid for his education with money squirreled away from catering side jobs that never went into the company books. $97,000, a fortune that could have been my own retirement fund. "Now we have got real culinary training in the family," David joked at Michael's graduation dinner. Something in his tone made my knife pause over my salmon, as if my decades of experience, my innate understanding of flavor, were somehow less valuable than Michael's formal degree. I watched Michael evolve from eager apprentice to vocal critic in 3 short years. Each innovation I developed became outdated before implementation. Each tradition I honored became restrictive. Each client relationship I had nurtured became a limitation on growth. "The problem is you're thinking too small, Mom," he told me after I had spent 14 hours perfecting a deconstructed apple pie for a client who specifically requested American classics with a twist. "These custom menus for individual clients just do not scale." Scale. It became Michael's favorite word, a cudgel to beat back my insistence on quality and personalization. When Jenny entered the picture, sharp, ambitious, with a marketing degree and dismissive attitude toward what she called home cooking, the dynamic shifted further. Suddenly, my contributions were the traditional backbone, while Michael's were the innovative future. Your mom's generation did not have to worry about social media presence and brand consistency, I overheard Jenny telling Michael. She has built something nice, but it is a mom and pop operation at heart. We need to think bigger. Something nice, a mom and pop operation, 32 employees, $1 million annual revenue, clients who booked us years in advance, all reduced to a stepping stone for their grander ambitions. Sophia, my longest-serving employee, tried to warn me. "They're changing things when you're not looking, Marianne," she told me, her voice low as we prepped for a wedding. "Substituting ingredients, reducing prep times, cutting corners on your techniques. They're just improving efficiency," I said, even as unease bloomed in my chest. The scent of shortcuts was unmistakable, like the artificial vanilla extract someone had substituted in my signature cake, thinking I would not notice. But my hands knew the difference, even if my heart refused to acknowledge it. Sophia gave me a look I will never forget. Part pity, part frustration. There is a difference between improvement and replacement. They are not trying to make your systems better. They are creating a parallel operation that does not need you. I dismissed her concerns, unwilling to believe my family could see me as dispensable, even when my recipe development sanctuary became Jenny's digital media space without consultation. Even when I found myself relegated to kitchen operations while strategic decisions happened in rooms I was not invited to enter. The most telling moment came at last year's holiday party. For 26 years, I had prepared a special staff meal, cooking for days to honor each employee's cultural traditions and preferences. I arrived to find it already catered by another company. "We wanted to give you a break this year," Jenny explained, not meeting my eyes, "so you could enjoy the party like everyone else." I stood frozen in the doorway, my signature black cardigan suddenly insufficient against the chill spreading through my body. My hands, always in motion, fell still at my sides. The message could not have been clearer. "You are no longer essential." "That is not how we break bread in this house," I whispered, too softly for anyone to hear. That night, alone in my kitchen, I pressed my palms against the cool marble countertop I had selected years ago. The stone held the memory of thousands of meals prepared, the invisible imprint of my labor. For the first time, I allowed myself to contemplate a truth I had been avoiding. The business I had built with my hands was being systematically removed from them. The revelation did not come as a lightning strike, but as a slow rising tide of certainty. As I stood there, the scent of another caterer's food still clinging to my clothes, I felt something shift deep within me. Not yet resolve, not yet action, but awareness, the first ingredient in any recipe for change. After the meeting, I drove aimlessly through the city, hands gripping the steering wheel, until my knuckles blanched white. The documents were still damp in my bag. 27 years of my life, reduced to waterlogged paper. The scent of ink and wet pulp filled the car. A funeral smell for dreams being buried. I found myself parked outside our first commercial kitchen, now a trendy vape shop. The irony was not lost on me. Something authentic replaced by something artificial, marketed as the future. I pressed my forehead against the cool window of my car, watching strangers move through the space where I had once created with such hope. The phantom aroma of that first kitchen still lived in my memory. Yeast and butter and possibility. My phone vibrated repeatedly with texts from David and Michael. I silenced it without looking. For once, they could wait on me. The sun was setting when I finally returned home to the kitchen I had designed. 6-burner professional range, double ovens, butcher block island, walk-in pantry organized by cuisine type. It should have felt like sanctuary. Instead, it felt like a stage set, a beautiful illusion of control. The marble countertop that had once recorded the rhythm of my chopping now felt cold and unyielding beneath my fingertips. I moved through the space by muscle memory, fingers trailing across surfaces I had selected with such care. The drawer pulls I had insisted on because they reminded me of my grandmother's kitchen. The Portuguese backsplash tiles, the knife block containing blades worn to the perfect shape of my grip. My hand paused over the drawer where I kept my original recipe journals. 27 volumes, one for each year of the business. I pulled it open, only to find it empty. A sensation like free-falling gripped me, that stomach-dropping moment when your foot expects solid ground and finds nothing. The room tilted, my breath caught. I yanked open the next drawer, empty. The cabinet with my reference books, cleared out. My breath came in quick, shallow gasps as I checked every cabinet with increasing desperation. Everything personal, everything that documented my culinary journey, gone. My fingertips tingled with panic, searching for what they had touched thousands of times, finding only absence. I heard the front door open, David's keys jangling as he hung them on the hook by the door. "Marianne? You were not answering your phone," We were worried. I did not turn around. Where are my journals? A silence stretched between us, taut as overworked dough. Michael took them to the office, he said finally. For the digitization project. You knew about that. I whirled to face him. I knew he was creating digital copies. I did not know he was removing the originals from our home. David's expression shifted, that rearrangement of features I had seen 1,000 times when he was preparing to manage me. The slight tightening around his eyes, the practiced softening of his mouth. They are safer at the office with the backup system. Those recipes are valuable intellectual property now. Now? The word hung in the air between us, the taste of it acid on my tongue. They have always been valuable. They have always been intellectual property. My intellectual property. David sighed, loosening his tie. This is exactly why we handled the legal side without involving you. You are too emotional about all this. It is business, Marianne. Too emotional. The phrase landed like a slap, stinging across my cheek, though he had not touched me. I built this business while caring for your mother with dementia. I developed recipes at her bedside while you worked late. I tested menus with one hand while helping her eat with the other. For 7 years, was I too emotional then? He had the decency to look away. That was different. How? I demanded, my voice rising, the heat of it warming my throat. How was it different? Because we needed you then. The words exploded from him, hanging in the air like smoke after a flash fire. We needed you then, but they did not need me now. The truth of it hollowed me out, carving away everything inside like a gourd being prepared for display, decorative but empty. David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me. Michael and Jenny are coming over. We need to talk about how we move forward. Move forward, I repeated, the words tasting bitter, like coffee grounds at the bottom of the cup, with the business you have taken from me. No one has taken anything from you. Your name is still on the door. You are still the heart of the operation, but not the head, not the hands, not the legal owner. For God's sake, Marianne, you are 58. Could not you enjoy slowing down a little? Let the kids take some of the pressure off. His expression softened into what he probably thought was concern. Your doctor said your arthritis is getting worse. You are working too hard. This is a good thing. My hands, the ones he claimed were failing, curled into fists at my sides. The slight twinge in my right wrist was nothing compared to the searing pain of his betrayal. These hands had chopped, stirred, kneaded, and created for decades. They knew truths my heart was only now beginning to acknowledge. The doorbell rang. Michael and Jenny arrived wearing expressions of rehearsed concern. Michael carried a sleek leather portfolio, more documents, more decisions already made. Mom? Michael began, his voice gentle in that patronizing way people use with children and the elderly. We should have handled this morning better. We did not mean to blindside you. Did not you? The question hung in the air, sharp as the scent of lemon zest. Jenny stepped forward. Marianne, we value everything you have built. That is why we are working so hard to preserve it, to grow it beyond what is currently possible, by removing me from the legal ownership. Michael sighed. The investors required a clean corporate structure. It is standard procedure. And no one thought I should be part of that structure. After 27 years, an uncomfortable silence fell. In it, I heard everything they were not saying. She is difficult. She is traditional. She is resistant to change. She is emotional. She is old. Michael opened his portfolio and spread more documents across the island. My island, where I had tested recipes that built the business they were now claiming. I let my fingertips trace the edge of the marble, remembering every dish created there, every triumph and failure. We have structured a very generous consulting arrangement, he explained, pointing to figures that blurred before my eyes. You will be the founder and culinary ambassador, still the face of Winter's Catering for client relations. but without the stress of daily operations. Ambassador. A ceremonial role. A figurehead without power. The word tasted like sugar substitute on my tongue. Synthetic sweetness masking bitter intent. And what exactly would my compensation be for this demotion? My voice was steadier than I felt. More uncomfortable glances exchanged. The air in the kitchen grew thick with tension, like a sauce on the verge of breaking. 15% of net profits, David said. With a guaranteed minimum of $75,000 annually, the floor seemed to tilt beneath me. 15%. From 100% ownership to 15% profit share. From building a 7-figure business to a $75,000 salary. Less than I had paid Michael fresh out of culinary school. We think it is very fair, Jenny added, considering market rates for culinary consultants. I was not a consultant. I was the creator, the founder, the expert, the one whose hands had shaped every aspect of what they now sought to control. I faced an impossible choice: fight for what was mine, and risk losing even the 15% they offered. Or accept this hollow version of my life's work. Both options meant loss. Both meant surrender of something precious. Something broke loose inside me then. A dam crumbling after holding back pressure for too long. With perfect clarity, I understood that this had been years in the making. Every small dismissal, every unacknowledged contribution, every decision made without me, all leading to this moment, when they would formalize my irrelevance. I walked to my phone, picked it up, and with hands that had suddenly stopped shaking, pulled up the contact I needed. The trembling had ceased, replaced by a steadiness I had not felt in years. "Who are you calling?" David asked, alarm edging into his voice. "Patricia Chen, your old client from the law firm. Why?" When Patricia's voicemail answered, I spoke clearly. "Patricia, it is Marianne Winters. I need to speak with you as soon as possible about a legal matter. It is urgent." I set the phone down and looked at the 3 people watching me with growing unease. The air in the kitchen shifted, like the moment before water begins to boil. "Mom, do not be dramatic," Michael said. "There is no need for lawyers." "I am not signing anything," I said quietly. "And I want my recipe journals returned to this house by tomorrow morning." "Those are company property now," Jenny began. "Those are my personal journals, written in my hand, documenting my creative process. They were never transferred to the company." Something in my tone made her step back slightly. The words emerged from me with the precision of a chef's knife, clean and sharp. "Marianne, be reasonable," David said. "We are trying to take care of you." "No," I said simply. "You are trying to take care of yourselves." "That is not fair," Michael protested. "We have worked hard too." "You have," I acknowledged. "But not for 27 years. Not through the periods when we could not afford employees and I worked 20-hour days. Not through the years when I developed every recipe, trained every staff member, and maintained every client relationship while simultaneously running a household. Now we are cooking with gas," I thought. The phrase my father used when things were finally coming together. In one beautiful, terrible moment of clarity, I saw the path forward. I would not surrender what was mine. I would not be erased from my own story. Sophia's guest bedroom was small but immaculate, with a view of the city skyline I had never appreciated before. I stood at the window that first morning, watching the sun gild the edges of buildings, feeling strangely weightless. For 27 years, I had risen before dawn to prep for catering jobs or develop recipes. Today, I answered to no one. My hands, so accustomed to constant motion, rested quietly on the windowsill, a stillness that felt both foreign and liberating. "I called Patricia," I said, accepting the coffee Sophia offered. The warmth of the mug against my palms reminded me of countless mornings testing recipes, a sensory memory that now carried a bittersweet edge. "I am meeting her at 10. Good, Sophia replied, arranging fresh berries on Greek yogurt with the precision of a true chef. The vibrant colors against the white yogurt created a composition so beautiful it seemed a shame to disturb it. I do not even know what I am fighting for, I admitted. The business as it was, my recipes, my name, all of it, Sophia replied without hesitation. Everything that is rightfully yours. My phone buzzed again. David's 7th text since dawn. I silenced it without reading. The familiar weight of accommodation tried to settle on my shoulders, that instinct to smooth things over, to put others first. I consciously straightened my spine, shrugging off the invisible burden. They will try to make you feel selfish, Sophia said, watching me, difficult, ungrateful. Do not let them. 3 hours later, I sat in Patricia Chen's office, surrounded by law books and modernist art. I had catered her firm's events for 15 years, watching her rise from junior associate to named partner. Now she listened intently as I laid out the entire situation, her expression shifting from professional interest to barely contained outrage. Let me understand correctly, she said when I finished. Your name appears nowhere on the business registration or trademark applications. Apparently not. The admission tasted like failure on my tongue. But you used your inheritance as initial capital, $127,000, my mother's life insurance. The exact amount still lived in my body, the weight of those funds transferred from my mother's death to my new beginning. Patricia made a note, and there was never any formal agreement about ownership percentages. I felt heat creep up my neck. We were family. I trusted them. The familiar burn of embarrassment spread across my skin, a sensation I had felt too often in recent years, whenever business discussions arose. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Family businesses are always complicated, but legally speaking, this gives us several angles to pursue. She outlined options, challenging the trademark application, claiming copyright on my recipes, even pursuing fraud charges for the unauthorized digitization of my personal journals. Each possibility resonated like a tuning fork, vibrating with potential. What do you want, Marianne? Patricia asked finally. Best case scenario? The question caught me off guard. For decades, my wants had been secondary, subsumed by family needs, business demands, others' expectations. The silence stretched as I searched within myself for an answer that had been buried for years beneath layers of accommodation. Recognition, I said slowly. For my work, my expertise, my contribution. I straightened in my chair, feeling my body align with my words. And compensation, fair compensation, for what I have built. We can fight this multiple ways, but first we need to secure evidence. Do you have any proof of your role in founding the business? Early documentation? Correspondence with clients? My heart sank. My recipe journals. But they took them. Anything else? Bank statements showing your investment? Early business cards? Press coverage? I thought of the storage boxes in our basement, memorabilia I had carefully preserved while David occasionally suggested we declutter. Now it might be my salvation. The image of those boxes, stacked neatly against the basement wall, appeared in my mind with perfect clarity. I need to get back into the house, I realized. Everything is there. That afternoon, I waited until I knew everyone would be at the office, then used my key to enter what had been my home. The silence felt accusing as I moved through rooms I had designed and maintained for years. My fingertips brushed against familiar surfaces, each touch awakening memories of the life I had built here. In the basement, I found the treasure, 7 storage boxes labeled Business Archives. My hands trembled as I opened the first one, revealing neatly organized folders containing everything from our first business card, featuring my handwritten recipes as the background design, to newspaper clippings about our early success. A 1999 business profile jumped out at me. Marianne Winters transforms home cooking into catering empire. The accompanying photo showed me in our first commercial kitchen, surrounded by staff, clearly in charge. The caption read, "Founder and Executive Chef Marianne Winters with her team." Founder, Executive Chef. My titles, documented in black and white. I traced the words with my fingertip, feeling their solidity, their truth. I continued digging, finding bank statements showing my initial investment, handwritten client testimonials specifically praising my food and service, even the original napkins I had custom printed with my signature recipes. The scent of old paper filled my nostrils, a perfume more precious than any designer fragrance. Box after box revealed the paper trail of my career, the evidence Patricia needed, the proof I had existed as more than just Michael's mom or David's wife in the business I had created. My hands recognized these documents before my eyes did, muscle memory guiding me to important files, fingers knowing instinctively which folders contained crucial evidence. The final box contained something unexpected, journals I had kept during my mother-in-law's illness. 7 years of daily entries documenting not just her care, but the simultaneous building of the business. Developed new canapé concept between medication doses. Tested sauce variations while sitting beside her bed. Finalized Bergen financial menu after she fell asleep. The physical record of my divided attention, my doubled duties, my relentless effort to be everything to everyone. As I held these journals, my shoulders remembered the weight they had carried, the constant pressure of being needed on multiple fronts. I was so absorbed that I did not hear the front door open. When David's voice called my name, I froze, caught in my own basement like an intruder. "What are you doing?" he asked from the doorway, his expression a mix of relief and suspicion. "Getting my things," I answered, closing the journal in my hands, feeling its texture against my palms like a talisman. His eyes fell to the open boxes. "Those are company archives." "No," I corrected him. "These are my personal records, documentation of my work." David stepped closer, his brow furrowing as he registered what I was looking at. "You are building a case against us." The directness of it, the us versus you, crystallized everything. The line had been drawn, not by me, but by their actions. "I am protecting what is mine," I said simply. "Marianne, this is ridiculous. We are family. We do not need lawyers and documentation between us." His tone was reasonable, conciliatory, the voice he used to smooth over client concerns. "Come home. We will figure this out together." For a moment, I wavered. The pull of familiarity, of peace, of my comfortable bed instead of Sophia's guest room. It was strong. 27 years of accommodation had worn deep grooves in my decision-making. My body leaned toward the path of least resistance, muscle memory urging compromise. "Michael feels terrible," David continued, sensing my hesitation. "He never meant to upset you this much. He respects everything you have built." "Then why is not my name on a single legal document?" David sighed. "It is complicated. Corporate structures, investor requirements. But we can find a solution that makes everyone happy." I looked down at the journal in my hands, physical evidence of years juggling business growth with caregiving duties. David had never kept such records, never documented the divided attention, the doubled efforts. The weight of the journal anchored me to my resolve. "I am taking these boxes," I said, rising to my feet. "You cannot just take company property. Watch me." Something in my tone must have registered, because he stepped back slightly. "At least let me help you carry them." "No," I said, lifting the first box. "I have carried everything myself for years. Why stop now?" The burden felt different this time, purposeful rather than imposed. Each box represented years of my life, my expertise, my value, and I would bear their weight toward my future, not my past. That night, I spread the contents of the boxes across Sophia's living room floor. organizing documentation by year. The physical timeline of my career emerged, from handwritten catering proposals to glossy magazine features, from crude logo sketches to sophisticated brand packages. The colors, textures, and scents of these materials surrounded me, a tactile history of my professional journey. "They cannot argue with this," Sophia said, examining a stack of early client testimonials. "They will try," I replied, my fingers straightening the edges of a folder with the precision I once applied to plating desserts. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Mom, please come to the office tomorrow. We want to make this right." I showed Sophia, who scoffed. On their turf, surrounded by staff loyal to them, absolutely not. The next day, Patricia called with an update. "The trademark opposition has been filed. We are also sending formal notice regarding the unauthorized use of your intellectual property." What happens next? They will either negotiate or escalate. Given the family dynamics, I am guessing they will try to pressure you informally first. She was right. That evening, David showed up at Sophia's apartment unannounced. "This has gone far enough," he said when I answered the door. "You need to come home so we can talk sensibly." "I am being sensible," I replied, not inviting him in, for perhaps the first time in decades. "Legal action against your own family?" His incredulity would have been more convincing if I had not seen his calculating expression the day I discovered the trademark paperwork. "What will people think?" "That is what you are really worried about, is not it? Appearances. Not whether you have treated me fairly, but what others will say." After he left, I returned to my growing collection of documents, business records, recipe journals, concept outlines for a new venture forming in my mind. As I worked, my hands moved with the same deliberate precision they had always shown in the kitchen, only now they were preparing a different kind of creation. A text arrived from an unfamiliar number. "Ms. Winters, Marcus Reed suggested I contact you. I represent Culinary Ventures Group. We are interested in discussing a potential partnership." Culinary Ventures Group, one of the largest investors in upscale food service nationwide. Their interest would have been the crown jewel of Michael's expansion plan, and they were contacting me directly. I set down my phone, a smile spreading across my face. The warmth of possibility bloomed in my chest, a feeling I had almost forgotten. This was the unfolding of a new recipe, one written entirely in my own hand. The offices of Culinary Ventures Group occupied the 32nd floor of a gleaming downtown tower. I adjusted my burgundy blazer, purchased yesterday in a rare act of self-indulgence, and announced myself to the receptionist with a voice steadier than the hummingbird flutter of my heart. "Ms. Winters," said James Bennett, extending his hand as I was shown into the conference room. "Thank you for coming." He was younger than I had expected, mid-40s perhaps, with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to making million-dollar decisions before lunch. 3 other executives sat around the table, all watching me with measured interest. "We have heard a great deal about you," James continued, gesturing to a chair at the head of the table, not off to the side, not in a supporting role. For the next 40 minutes, I outlined my vision: heritage dining experiences, not just recipes, but a comprehensive approach to honoring food traditions while creating contemporary experiences. I spoke with a confidence that surprised me, my voice growing stronger with each point, each question answered, each approving nod. "Your projected capital requirements?" Daniel Wheaton, silver-haired and serious, asked. $1.8 million for full launch, I replied without hesitation. Though we could scale the concept with less. "And your team?" Core members identified, including an operations director with 15 years experience. I did not mention it was Sophia. Some details could wait. When I finished, James exchanged glances with his colleagues before turning back to me. "Ms. Winters, we would like to discuss investment terms." By the time I left the Culinary Ventures offices 2 hours later, I had a preliminary commitment for $1.6 million in funding. As the elevator descended, I caught my reflection in its polished doors, standing taller, my expression composed but quietly triumphant. The woman who had entered the building earlier that day was not the same one leaving it now. Outside, I found 16 missed calls, 3 from Patricia, the rest from David and Michael. A text from Patricia read simply, "Call me immediately." "They know," she said when I reached her. "About your meeting with Culinary Ventures." Michael got a call from James Bennett's office canceling their investment discussions. A strange calm settled over me. I expected as much. They are in full panic mode. David has been calling me non-stop, alternating between threats and pleas. Her tone shifted. "This actually strengthens our position considerably. With another investor interested in you directly, we have significant leverage." The next day, I arrived at Patricia's office 15 minutes early, taking time to compose myself. I had chosen my outfit carefully, the burgundy blazer paired with a designer dress in deep blue that I had coveted for years, but always deemed too extravagant. David, Michael, and their lawyer arrived precisely on time, their expressions a study in contained tension. Michael's jaw worked silently, a muscle twitching near his temple. David's smile appeared frozen, not reaching his eyes. "Thank you for coming," Patricia began. "As you know, we are here to discuss the ownership dispute regarding Winter's Catering and related intellectual property." Their lawyer, Stuart Chambers, a corporate shark I recognized from industry events, placed a folder on the table. His manicured fingers splayed possessively across the document. "We have prepared a revised ownership agreement that we believe addresses Mrs. Winter's concerns while protecting the company's future." "Ms. Winters?" I corrected quietly, noting how his nostrils flared slightly at the correction. Stuart continued without acknowledgement. The new structure would grant Marianne a 20% ownership stake, with appropriate board representation. 20% of the company I founded, I said, more to myself than to them. The words tasted like watered-down stock, thin and without substance. Michael leaned forward, his expression earnest, the same look he had given me when asking for money for his first car. "Mom, that is a significant stake. And with the expansion plans that were developed without my input," I interrupted. "Using my recipes, digitized without my permission, for investor meetings I was not invited to." "We have explained why that happened," David said, frustration edging into his voice, a flush creeping up from his collar. "Corporate structures, streamlined decision-making. Excuses for excluding me," I finished for him. "Not reasons." Patricia tapped her pen against her legal pad. "My client has received a competing offer that values her culinary expertise and leadership considerably higher than your proposal suggests." Stuart's expression tightened, crow's feet deepening around his eyes. Culinary Ventures' interest is preliminary at best, and their backing of a competing concept could be seen as tortious interference. "Only if Marianne were under contract with Winter's Catering," Patricia countered, "which, according to your own paperwork, she is not." I slid my terms across the table, watching as Stuart scanned the contents, his expression shifting from dismissive to concerned. His eyebrows rose incrementally with each line he read. "This is unreasonable," he said, pushing it toward David. 51% ownership, retroactive profit sharing, full creative control, and the return of my original recipe journals," I added. "Non-negotiable." David looked up from the document, his face flushed. "This would gut the company. We would be working for you." "No," I corrected him gently. "We would be working together, the way it always should have been." Michael finally spoke, his voice tight. "You are trying to take everything from us." "No, Michael. I am preventing you from taking everything from me." I leaned forward, meeting his gaze directly. 27 years, 843 original recipes, 16-hour days, while raising you, while caring for your grandmother. Client relationships I built personally, a reputation I earned through decades of excellence. I paused, letting the words sink in. You wanted to reduce me to a culinary consultant in my own company, offered me 15% of the profits from my life's work, erased my name from the brand I created. My voice remained calm, though my heart raced. And you are surprised I am fighting back? At 4 in the afternoon, I stood outside the main conference room at Winter's Catering headquarters, listening to the murmur of voices inside. Through the glass panel in the door, I could see staff members filing in, their expressions concerned, curious. Sophia nodded almost imperceptibly as she passed me. Inside, the room fell silent as I followed Michael through the door. 32 faces turned toward us, some surprised, others relieved at my presence. Marianne, David's smile looked forced, tight at the edges. I am glad you could join us. Jenny stepped forward, professional smile firmly in place. We were just about to update the team on recent developments. Please, I said, taking a seat near the back. Do not let me interrupt. David cleared his throat. As some of you may have heard, we are currently working through some structural adjustments to the business. An uncomfortable silence fell. Jenny stepped forward, her hands clasped before her, knuckles white. Change is always challenging, she began, but we want to assure everyone that Winter's Catering remains committed to the vision that has made us successful. Whose vision would that be? The question came from Carlos, our executive sous chef for the past 8 years. Jenny's smile did not waver. The company's vision, of course. But what about Marianne's role going forward? Asked Layla from client relations. There are rumors, David interjected smoothly. Marianne will always be a valued part of the Winters family and business. We are simply updating our corporate structure to facilitate growth. By removing her name from the trademark application? This came from Sophia, her tone deceptively casual. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Staff members exchanged glances, whispers rippling through the gathered employees. David's expression hardened slightly, a vein pulsing at his temple. Corporate filings are complex. There have been some oversights that we are in the process of correcting. Oversights, I repeated, the word hanging in the air. All eyes turned to me. I had not planned to speak, had told myself I would observe only. But the clinical dismissal of my systematic erasure as an oversight ignited something deep within me. I stood slowly, my burgundy blazer a splash of rich color against the conference room's neutral tones. For those who do not know the full situation, I began, my voice steady. 3 days ago, I discovered that the trademark application for our business, the business I founded 27 years ago, had been filed without my name anywhere on the documents. Murmurs rippled through the room. I also learned that my recipes, 843 original creations developed over nearly 3 decades, had been digitized without my knowledge or consent and were being presented as company property rather than my intellectual property. David stepped forward. Marianne, this is not the appropriate forum. Is not it? I countered. These people have built their careers on a foundation I created. Do not they deserve to know what is happening to that foundation? I met the eyes of different staff members as I spoke. Carlos, who had come to us as a dishwasher and now ran our kitchen. Layla, whom I had mentored from receptionist to client relations director. And yet, I continued, I recently found myself demoted to culinary consultant in my own company, offered 15% of the profits from a business I built from nothing. The shock on many faces told me what I had suspected. Most staff had no idea what had been happening behind the scenes. I want to be clear, I said, addressing the staff directly. I am not walking away from what I have built. I am fighting for it, for my rightful place in it, for recognition of my contribution. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, slowly, Carlos stood up. I came to work here because of Chef Marianne, he said simply. Her standards, her creativity, her leadership, that is what Winters Catering has always meant to me. Layla rose next. Same. My clients ask for Marianne by name. They trust her judgment, her taste, her attention to detail. One by one, other staff members stood, some offering explicit support, others simply rising to be counted. By the time the last person stood, David, Michael, and Jenny were the only ones still seated in a room full of standing employees. I believe, I said into the powerful silence, we will need to reschedule the remainder of this meeting. As staff filed out, Michael approached me, his expression a complex mix of emotions. You have turned everyone against us, he said, his voice low. No, I corrected him gently. I simply reminded them who we have always been, who I have always been. You are the ones who tried to change that narrative. We were trying to secure the company's future. By erasing its past? I shook my head. That is not security, Michael. It is revision. 2 days later, in Patricia's conference room, I sat across from David, Michael, and a noticeably subdued Stuart as we finalized the new ownership agreement. 51% ownership, Patricia confirmed, tapping the document. Full creative control over menu development. Retroactive profit sharing for the past 3 years. Stuart nodded reluctantly. And Miss Winters' personal recipe journals to be returned immediately, with a licensing agreement for company use of the recipes contained therein. With appropriate compensation, Patricia added. David signed without meeting my eyes. Michael hesitated, pen hovering over the signature line. This changes everything, he said quietly. Yes, I agreed. It restores what should never have been taken. 6 months later, I stand at the pass of our newest kitchen, watching staff move with choreographed precision through their stations. My chef whites are tailored now, with executive chef and founder embroidered in burgundy thread above the heart. My posture is different, shoulders back, chin lifted, taking up space rather than shrinking to accommodate others. The kitchen gleams with both state-of-the-art equipment and traditional tools, digital temperature control systems, alongside hand-forged copper pans, modernization that enhances rather than replaces craftsmanship. The design reflects my newly integrated approach, honoring tradition while embracing innovation, but always with intention, never at the expense of quality. Chef, the Henderson party's final menu is ready for approval, says Elena, my new sous chef, extending a tablet. I make an adjustment without explanation. She nods, accepting my expertise without question. This is the new normal, my judgment trusted implicitly, not because I demanded it, but because I finally stopped allowing others to discount it. The decision to accept Culinary Ventures' offer for my independent concept rather than reinvest in Winters Catering was not made lightly. What tipped the scale was not ambition, but clarity. During a tense strategy meeting where Michael still struggled to incorporate my perspective rather than work around it, I realized that staying would mean constantly reinforcing boundaries that should never have been crossed. Heritage Dining Experiences launched 3 months ago with Sophia as my operations director and 5 former Winters employees who chose to follow me. The concept has exceeded even the most optimistic projections, with bookings secured 6 months in advance and a waiting list for our private dining experiences. Winters Catering continues under Michael's leadership, with David managing client relations. Our settlement included a non-competition clause that carved distinct market niches for each business. They focus on volume and scalability. We specialize in unique, culturally significant dining experiences for clients who value authenticity over uniformity. The irony is not lost on me. The heritage angle, Jenny once dismissed as limiting, has become our greatest market advantage. Marianne, there you are. I turned to see Margaret Chen, Patricia's law partner, and now a close friend, entering the kitchen. At 62, she carries herself with the confident elegance of a woman who has never apologized for her expertise or ambition. The guests are already arriving, including a certain food critic who seems quite taken with your philosophy. She means Marcus, of course. Our professional relationship has gradually evolved into something more personal. Coffee meetings extending into dinners, discussions about cuisine broadening into conversations about life, mutual respect deepening into something I am not quite ready to name. Before leaving the kitchen, I pause at the small framed photograph now hanging beside the door. My mother's recipe box, captured in beautiful detail, its worn edges and faded labels, a testament to generations of women's wisdom. Beneath it, a simple inscription: recipes are more than instructions. They are stories with flavors instead of words. The dining room buzzes with anticipation as I enter. The space is arranged around a central table, massive, constructed from reclaimed oak, designed to seat 20. Not isolated tables, but a communal experience where breaking bread means building community. My fingers brush the polished surface, the sensation grounding me in the present while honoring the past. I scan the room, noting Emma's presence. My daughter flew in yesterday from Seattle, where she is completing her medical residency. Our relationship has deepened since the separation from David, as if my reclamation of self somehow freed her to connect with me more authentically. "Mom," she says, embracing me warmly, "the place is gorgeous. I am so proud of you." My gaze catches on 3 unexpected figures near the entrance: David, Michael, and Jenny. Their presence sends a momentary jolt through me. This is the first time they have come to my establishment. Michael approaches first, looking both uncomfortable and determined. "The reservation was my idea," he explains. "I wanted to see what you have created." I nod, keeping my expression neutral. "I am glad you came." "It is amazing," he admits, glancing around the space. "Very, you." "Yes," I agree simply. "It is." The evening unfolds with a grace that feels almost magical. Course after course emerging from the kitchen, each telling a story, each honoring a tradition while offering something unexpectedly modern. I move through the space with a presence I have grown into, sometimes explaining a dish's history, other times simply observing as guests discover flavors for themselves. Between courses, I find Sophia at the service station, reviewing timing for the next presentation. "We have come a long way from that tiny commercial kitchen, have not we?" she says, nodding toward David and Michael, who are reluctantly admitting to neighboring diners that yes, I am indeed their former partner. "I did not walk away from what I built," I reply. "I took it with me, the knowledge, the skill, the relationships. The only things I left behind were the limitations others tried to place on me." Later, as guests linger over dessert, a deconstructed apple pie that pays homage to traditional techniques while incorporating unexpected elements, Marcus joins me near the kitchen entrance. "Spectacular," he says simply, his eyes warm with both professional appreciation and personal affection. "You have created something truly singular here." As the evening winds down, I find myself at the head of the main table, surrounded by guests, staff, and family both old and new. Emma sits to my right, Sophia to my left. Even David and Michael have found places at the table, their initial discomfort gradually easing as the shared experience of exceptional food bridges awkward gaps. Someone proposes a toast, raising a glass to heritage dining's success. As others join in, I am struck by the tableau before me, the physical manifestation of what I had fought for. Not just a business, but a place at the table. Not just recognition, but self-determination. After the last guest depart, I linger in the empty dining room, savoring the satisfied silence that follows a successful service. David approaches as I collect forgotten menus. "This is special, Marianne," he says, gesturing to encompass the space. "I understand now why you could not stay." I study him, the familiar features, the history we share, the memories both bitter and sweet. "Thank you for coming tonight. We are still family," he says hesitantly. Are not we, despite everything? The question hangs between us, weighted with implications. 6 months ago, I might have rushed to reassure him, to smooth over complications, to accommodate his need for resolution. We are connected, I say instead, choosing precision over platitude. We share history, a son, a lifetime of memories. But family means respecting boundaries, recognizing value, making space for growth. In my private office, a space that is entirely mine, designed to my specifications, I settle at the desk to review tomorrow's bookings. The wall before me displays framed press clippings about Heritage Dining's launch. Alongside the first review, Winters creates culinary legacy on her own terms. My phone buzzes with a text from Emma. Breakfast tomorrow before my flight. So proud of you, Mom. You are incredible. Later that night, in the quiet of my new home, a light-filled condo overlooking the river, decorated with pieces I had always admired, but never purchased out of habitual frugality. I stand before the full-length mirror in my bedroom. The woman reflected there still surprises me sometimes. At 58, I have never felt more comfortable in my own skin. The silver in my hair, once a source of anxiety, now seems like appropriate recognition of experience. The slight softening of my jawline, the laugh lines framing my eyes, all evidence of a life fully lived, not flaws to be hidden. I think of the young line cook who approached me after service tonight. Nervous but determined. Chef Winters, she had said, watching you build this, seeing what you have created after everything that happened, it is inspiring, especially for women in this industry. My hands, once questioned as too arthritic for the work I love, moved confidently through service tonight, guiding, creating, occasionally correcting with the gentle precision that comes from decades of practice. These same hands now rest on the edge of my mother's recipe box, returned to me as part of the legal settlement, along with all my original journals. Running my fingers along its worn edges, I think of the generations of women whose knowledge flows through me. My mother never had the opportunity to build something of her own. Her talents remained confined to home kitchens, her expertise categorized as homemaking rather than professional skill. Yet without her foundation, without the wisdom she passed to me, Heritage Dining would not exist. I did it, Mom, I whisper to the empty room. I finally set my own table. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, menu development, negotiations with suppliers, decisions about potential expansion. But for the first time in decades, I will meet those challenges as Marianne Winters, founder and executive chef, a woman who knows exactly what she brings to the table. The journey from invisible to essential, from background to foreground, from serving to being served, it was not a straight path. It required painful revelations, difficult confrontations, and the courage to walk away from familiar patterns. But here, in the quiet of this room that is entirely mine, I understand something I wish I had known 27 years ago. A seat at the table is not given, it is claimed. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is build your own table, set it according to your own standards, and invite others to join you there. Not as guests to be served, but as equals to be nourished by what you have created.